Okay, I think we're getting somewhere. Maybe. There we go. Hold on. Is my sound working? Okay. My sound is working. Oh, this is perfect for me. Ooh.
Of hysterical joy.
Oh my.
World War I promised us a...
Gotta turn off my lights. Turn my own headphones down. It is loud. Gotta turn off. Oh, well, hello, Mistress Angelica. Long time no see. Okay, phone, you can stop that. Trying to see, how are you doing today? I might have to do a homework assignment while I am on live stream, but it would be very quick because I know the assignment and I know what I need to do and what answers I need to click. Give me a second if you're typing something. I have not fully figured out how to get this to work. There we go. Alright, this is the best that I can do. I hope everybody is having a lovely day today. My life is really far behind. Can't wait to watch the stream. Hello, Kemetic. Hello, Zane the Rapper. Incredible synchronicity synchronicity. This year, Anubis wants to be my Halloween costume, and I am intrigued with the concept. I wish to initiate myself with my first deity work being Anubis. Oh, well, that's very great. I actually did used to do, I didn't do this for like an actual practice of sorts, but I used to sometimes, I wanted to wear a mask when I went to tend to cemeteries, because, you know, as a monk, sometimes I would, in the past when I could dedicate more time to it, I would go to cemeteries and essentially, well, what is it? I'd go to cemeteries, put on masks. I am so sorry. I have just gotten back from a workout and I am super exhausted. But I wanted to go to the cemeteries, put on a mask, and a mask of Anubis, and tend to the dead that way. Because that was actually a practice that was done in ancient Egypt, where they would make masks for Anubis and wear them while tending to the dead. So that's something I wanted to do, but finding an Anubis mask is incredibly difficult, so I have realized, and making one is even harder. But I'm really glad that you are going to be dressing up as Anubis this year for Halloween. I bet that'll be a really good costume. I'm glad to see all of you guys here today. Might live stream for longer, depending on audience turnout. If it goes past 2 hours, I might have to do some homework while I'm here, but that'll be all good and dandy. If you don't have any questions, you just want to meditate to the music, that is also an option. Sometimes people just need a time to relax. I might have some more content coming up here in the future. I might start doing debates, not really sure. Hope you guys can hear me. I think you can. Let me turn my mic up, make sure. You guys can hear me, right? We'll just need a time to relax. Okay, yeah, you guys can hear me. Making sure. How's everyone's day been today? We all had a good day today? We all been having a nice time? And it's currently was freezing rain earlier, and now it is no longer. Might get to see the first snowfall here soon. Yay! Visiting graveyards. I have a plastic max I'll be using. Oh, that's lovely. Hey, if you do visit a graveyard, there is nothing wrong with making a vase, putting a flower in it, and setting it on someone's tombstone that seems like they don't have any people who tend to it. You know, give some recognition to those who have moved on. This makes me sad, going to cemeteries and seeing grave tombstones where there's just no one that has paid attention to it for years. You can tell by how weathered it is and no flowers. I had a dream where I saw Anubis dressed up in a Savu turtleneck outfit at the front of my door. I opened the door excited to see him, then touched his face, and I immediately fell to the floor and woke up. The feeling of death can be very hard for the body to process. But funny enough, the depiction of Anubis wearing a big suit is not too uncommon. It's actually how in some forms of media that try to modernize him or anthropomorphify him kind of have him set up to look as. Last night I had a dream about Basset and Sekhmet, or I didn't have a dream, she just appeared in a dream, and it was the trippiest experience I think I've ever had. And the only reason I was able to know it was Basset was because of the meowing. And it was like a reminder to what she was trying to convey. So, I've had a very odd amount of dreams with some of these deities. They really do reveal themselves in mysterious ways, or so they say. I feel upset because I really wanted to get some of my, I had more videos I wanted to do, but I've just not had the time to get them out, and now that with a lot of the exams dying down for a couple weeks, I was really excited about possibly working on my, I was really excited to be possibly working on my philosophical suicide video, and that is not going to happen now. Because, well, I mean, I was going to work on it this week, and I was going to kind of upload the philosophical suicide and theological suicide around the same time. But that's just not going to end up happening like I was hoping, because unfortunately, in terms of that, I have another exam this weekend. Or no, not this weekend, this week. So, even more so, it's not like I'm going to have the time to do it either. Yeah, not really getting lucky, that's for sure. Kind of sucks, to be honest. I do know, I think, what my next batch of videos will be. I think the next videos that I'm going to look to do are, I wanted to do what it's like to work with Seth, and then I wanted to do I forgot there was another video I wanted to do. I know I was going to do what it's like to work with Seth, and then more like Anubis practices, essentially, involving the cemeteries thing I just mentioned. More things you can do is like a dedication to a god. And then, I haven't decided what the last video that I'll probably do. I think I had it on objective and subjective morality, but I'll have to wait and see about what I wanted to do with that video slot. I'm trying to get a better graph, because I really do want to do the theological and philosophical suicide video, but I have just like, yeah, if college kicks my ass. Basset came to me in a dream to heal a leg injury. A leg injury. Asked her help with. Found her in an alley in the middle of. Where's this heart would go though? Of Middle Eastern war zone in that dream. Oh my. certainly do appear in very strange ways. But that doesn't sound too out of the picture for her from experience. Mine she showed up to me in a dream. I was dreaming about a story I was writing between two characters who were lovers. And she came into my dream and she just, kept meowing. I think it was as a way of, to remind me of something. I think because I was dealing with some issues in terms of love and heartbreak and stuff. So I think she was trying to remind me of an inner self of something. What do you feel about chiroprids? And what are your opinions on them? Or crypid? I have never heard that word. Let me look it up real quick. I'd hang out, but I'm at work, and I'm about to head out. Alright, well, it was definitely nice getting to see you today. I'm glad you stopped by. I never know if I should do these later in the day, or if 5 p.m. is too early. I might ask everybody after this what time works better. What time works better for them. Oh, crap, I gotta look up that definition. My goodness, these workouts absolutely have drained me. I swam today, tried to kind of meditate while swimming in the water, getting a better feeling of the flow. Having a meaning that is mysterious or obscure. Oh! So somebody having a meaning that is mysterious or obscure. Cryptids. Oh boy. Well, it's hard to say what exactly you mean by cryptids. Do you mean by people who are cryptic, or do you mean people who are people who are cryptic, or people who essentially the cryptic messages that the gods give us and stuff like that? My thoughts on cryptic things. Did this thing freeze? I think it did. No, it did not. My opinion on on cryptic meanings of things. I believe that there's God speak in cryptic messages because they don't want to be too direct of an influence. All with the exception of Seth, who absolutely will be as blunt about anything if he can be. From experience, Seth is, again, the type that throws you into the pool of piranhas and says, good luck swimming. And he does not care if you sink or swim. I think it's kind of up to the person to interpret it, that they can leave an interpretation they can give you something to interpret, but it is entirely up to you on how you interpret it, or if you interpret the message that they're trying to convey effectively. And I think this is because if a god tells you what to do, you'll do it because they're a higher being. If a god gives you a nudge in the direction, you'll kind of just go depending on what you feel is more correct. Cryptics are like mystical creatures, oh, that's what you meant. Well, I think I still gave a really good definition. It's hard to say if people's cryptics are necessarily accurate. Sometimes I think some of them just come from misunderstanding or bad speculation. But I think they're also fun to engage with at sometimes. I guess you could say folklore creatures. I know you don't talk about that much, but I would love to hear what you think of them. I like folklore. Native Americans had a lot of folklore, and I think a lot of theirs actually was true, like skinwalkers, wendigos, and other kinds of beings like that. But I also think there might be some influence just off the fact that they were very outside, so sometimes the mind can play tricks, and some of those tribes were very well known for psychedelics, so it was like half a part of their culture. Also, hello, poor Mina, sweetie. Last time I asked if you had any technique for seeing Anubis, and you said you didn't. To be clear, does that also apply to the feeling feeling Anubis, or do you have a technique to be able to do that? The reason I can't give a technique is because if a deity will be the ones to let you, in a sense, feel them. And even when I was a complete novice at this, Anubis still had ways of communicating that feeling. It's just if the brain is capable of interpreting that feeling to what the god wants to intend. I guess that's why the original thing I'd said about cryptics was over-interpretation. If you really do need a way to help you feel if Anubis is there, your best bet is to just relax. It's just to lay in bed and relax. And just meditate for a few minutes and just breathe and feel, the sun on you, or feel the nature around you. When your mind is more awake and more relaxed and not really being burdened by the brain, it's a lot easier to feel those kinds of energies, and that's one of the best strategies I can give. That's a technique I'd have. Seeing Anubis and also feeling them can be different because he may or may not show up. He might let you feel him, he might let you see him, but he might not. When Anubis did reveal himself to me, it was entirely out of him doing so. I didn't really have a technique. He just kind of did it. I do remember the sun being very heavily on me though, and that's the only time I've ever directly seen Anubis, and he has refused to show himself after that. But that was for, I would assume, other reasons. Hearing, on the other hand, hearing is a whole other situation because I have no technique for that. If a god wants to talk to you, they will talk to you. From experience with Anubis talking to me, there is 3 instances that I can boil down to. There was something else there that had said something, and the other instances were just maybe that was Anubis, maybe not. Those examples were, there was one time I was talking about a very old experience that I had that was like, due to my psychosis, I was pretending that this fictional story I wrote was true. And I remember talking aloud about it, and I remember having Anubis just say no. Very, clearly in my head. And it's weird because it feels like a thought that is not your own has entered your head and is saying something. And Anubis doesn't talk in very long sentences. And the 2 other instances, Anubis said, I had a really, really bad day, and it was back when I didn't have a good grasp on my mental health, and I was kind of apologizing to Anubis for an action that I had did, and he said, and I this is something that I heard, he said, "It's okay, I understand." And he said it if I could try to mimic it, it was like, "It's okay, I understand." Something like that, but it was more vibrating and more kind of deeper. So, because he has a very deep voice. And then there was another instance. I was rehearsing for a video that I was going to do about Anubis, and I remember saying something because someone that I was I had watched had said, like, so Anubis acts like a dog, and I had said something like, I've never heard Anubis bark before, or anything like that, and I remember just hearing a sound come from over my altar, and I just remember, I remember hearing Anubis just go, woof. I had laughed about that, but those are the only instances I can think of Anubis ever talking. And if he does talk, or if any god talks, you will know, because you will not feel like you thought this, or you don't think that this was in your head. No, it's not that you don't think it's in your head. You'll know, because this is not something that you thought of. Like, again, it's a thought that's not your own, and that's how you'll kind of tell. So it can be a little complicated, but that's my experience particularly. Wow, that's a really good imitation of how Anubis sounds. I've heard him talk in my dreams. Very short sentences, but his voice is very soothing. He is a very soothing god. He is also a very, I don't want to say clingy, but he is a very gentle god. I meditate daily for a short amount and have no spiritual experiences at all. Is there anything you could recommend for me becoming more of a spiritual person and getting used to spirituality? This might sound like a bad answer, but no, not particularly. Well, now we have an ad.
Where creative freedom meets
Well,
absolute
I guess we can't answer the question. So the problem I have is people have, I mentioned this in like a video about God spousing and in my sex offering video about the problems that a lot of pagans have, where I like how the nodding thing shows up as I start talking about that, but that's more of correlation versus causation. I've talked about this, about a problem that that pagans have, where there's a lot of people who try to describe these over the top spiritual experiences. Like, this one girl was like, me and Loki go travel the worlds together through our astral traveling kind of stuff, or Loki takes me to all these other worlds, and oh my gosh, I got separated from Loki and he had to come save me, or Apollo, or insert 500 other deities that people have. Spiritual experiences are not a work of fiction, not most of the time. If that is the case, then I need to ask and make sure that you're not mentally having trouble. Spiritual experiences can oftentimes be the equivalent of just feeling more one with nature. You can feel the world around you, you can feel the energy around you, or you're more aware of your surroundings. Those are all spiritual experiences, because those are you kind of tapping into some of your chakras and some of your own energy, and becoming more like letting go of the worldly desires and the flesh and the brain's functions, and being more aware in your own thoughts that are not being dependent by something else. It's kind of like a meditation that this is actually a very big thing that Buddhists emphasized in their doing, throwing away the worldly desires. I mean, there's other critiques and kinds of things like that. You don't have to throw everything away, but that's kind of the point, is thinking solely out of your conscious, not through your desires of your body. Those are all spiritual kinds of experiences, just being entirely in your thoughts. That's one way if you really wanted to have better spiritual growth. But in terms of like experiencing spiritual stuff, it can be hard, because sometimes you just might not have a deity that's doing anything. You might not have a spirit that's doing anything, but that doesn't mean you're not having a spiritual experience. It just means that there's not a deity that's active. If you want a deity to give you some kind of a spiritual experience, then is a simple question, or not question, but simple answer of just asking, like, hey, can you like do something in a dream? Can you like give me a hug? Can you put your energy on me? Can I feel your energy? There's as simple as that. But that's about it. For you, is there a difference between god spousing and monkhood, nunhood? And if so, what is the difference? From experience, god spousing, I did a video on this too, is a severely misrepresented practice. And the reason it becomes so misrepresented is because people don't have a good understanding of the intention of it. And god spousing is found even in Christian beliefs. Nuns wear a ring to show their marriage to Jesus or God. I've never really understood which one is which. Depends on the branch of their belief of the Trinity. To me, there is the god spousing of being literally married to a deity is not a real thing. If you are in a romantic love relationship with a deity, you are not truly god spoused. And I want to emphasize, because I know that there are people who have these romantic tensions with their gods and are god spoused, but you can be god spoused and have a romantic kind of love for your deity. But the problem I have is that people think either that they need to be like monogamy with their deity, and that they can only be with their god, or people think that they are physically the wife or husband of their god, or they think that that their deity is more than what it is. The problem I have is that when people are god spoused solely out of romantic intention, not because they resign with a god. I god spoused with Anubis out of the resignment of death and the way that people end up dying and getting treated. At one point I wanted to be a hospice nurse. That's why I god spoused. There was a lot of reasons for my god spousery. There was the romantic situation that was involved, but now that I look back on a lot of my early god spousery, I kind of regret it ever forming due to romantic relations, because of how my mental state was, that I couldn't really tell if it was me or if that was truly Anubis. And that like massively hurt my relationship with Anubis because of how much I didn't know. To me, if you were physically in a romantic relationship with your god, as you would be with a human, you are not god spoused. If you're in a relationship in terms of monkhood, or because you're really resigned with your deity, or because you are really like aspiring to work with them heavily, and there is like romantic attention, like again, Anubis can be a bit romantic at times. The Morgan was, I can't speak too much on the Morgan on that one. I've heard a lot of mixed results in terms of her and being romantic. Like Hades can be a bit romantic. I know that the cult of Isis used to be very well associated with sex. Isis can be very romantic in general, but that doesn't mean that you are romantically in a relationship with them. Like, god spousing is entirely monk and nunhood. If it is solely out of romantic intentions, then you are not god spoused. So, hope that cleared that up. I have a problem with some of the people who god spouse nowadays, because the problems that I've seen form. Problems that I have seen form come from that like random white light threw me off. The problems I've seen come from the constant I know that white light really threw me for a loop. The problem I've seen with gosh dang it's doing it again. The problem I've had with god spousing particularly is just that I just it feels like it's such a misunderstood practice, and it is consistently misrepresented. Too many people think they're like genuinely the lover of a god, not that they are a human. That is just a human that does human stuff. Yes, I understand what you're trying to say. I've been working with Anubis for 13 years, and at this point, our relationship feels like a marriage. And that's good. And there's, like, again, you know, gods aren't humans, but they oftentimes can imitate human behavior. And they do that to better understand us and to better work with us. So they imitate human behavior. Many gods imitate those who found them, or their belief in them, essentially. And they do that to get the attention of the followers. That's why you have, like, a god of war being associated with a group of people who are much more oriented around war, or gods of death having different kinds of adaptations depending on the bigger group who believe in them. And, like, as someone who works with Anubis is he's just a romantic deity, but he's also a very serious and fatherly and loving deity as well. And because of that, he can come off as a bit, it can be kind of like a marriage depending on how you work with your god. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think a lot of people just god spouse because they think their deities are attractive, and not because that their deities are because they resign with their deity, essentially. In terms of the commitment and depth of the relationship, in that I feel like he's a part of me, not that I'm romantically interested. Gods, at some point, Persona actually kind of made this aspect a little clear. Gods can become a part of you in terms of like a persona. You can invoke them whenever you need them, and you'll start acting more as they would in their energy. I've had there was one time during a tornado that I think I just accidentally invoked Anubis, and I got to a point where I had to get everyone in the apartment complex I lived in to a neighbor's basement and keep everyone there so we would be safe from the tornado. And it was just like this feeling of, I'm going to get everyone safe. And then there was one person who got into a fight, or there was a fight that broke out between a group of people, and I kind of just stood there, knowing that if a fight actually broke out, I could separate the fight. So sometimes when times are really in need, you can kind of invoke a deity, and they like adapt, they become a part of you for that moment. And I've noticed that can be with any god. It's harder with some gods if your personalities are very conflicting. I want to work with Anubis, and I am a complete noob at all of this, but I have been in the occult research and simply intrigued in working on my inner world. Would you recommend god spousing? No. I would not recommend god spousing early. If you're a complete noob, if you are a complete noob, your best bet is to get an altar, get a statue of Anubis, set up a dish in a water, or something to pour water in. Maybe get a candle, and make an altar somewhere, put food in it, and kind of pray to the altar. That is the best way to basically make that's the best way to communicate. That's the best way to start. I don't recommend god spousing right off the bat, because you won't understand your deity, and you may not fully understand what Anubis is, what he might expect in a god spousery, which Anubis isn't really picky. So, also, I feel like I'm the only person in the world that's like god spouse to Anubis, because I have never heard of anyone else being god spouse to Anubis. I've only heard of Like, I've heard Hades, I've heard Loki, I've heard Morgan, Lilith, but I have never heard of someone being god spouse to Anubis, despite so many people work with him. Also, I need to pee. I will be right back. Don't kill yourselves, please. Oh. Does monkhood, nunhood necessarily mean you abstain from a romantic relationship with other humans, or is this a rule of some established religious observers? Monk and nunhood, in terms of celibacy, is a Roman and Christian belief system. No, that doesn't always have to be the case. In fact, many gods would almost encourage this kind of behavior, or to find romantic interest in people who aren't them. Especially if you work with like a god like Isis or Dionysus, whatever it is, because they're gods that are well associated with sex and love, and they would not want you to be dedicating all of that love and energy to just them. They'd want you to dedicate that to other people as well. So no, it doesn't necessarily always mean that it should be dedicated to, you should not dedicate to celibacy. Unless you have a god that's just really strict on purity, but I don't really know any god that particularly is like that, so I say no. That is not a rule that you have to follow in god spousery. Like, I've spoken out against polygamy in terms of god spousery. Like, your gods are not people. They are gods. They are higher than us. Putting them on the level of people is just it's just disrespectful. I'll be right back. I'm gonna use the bathroom. Alright, I am back. Oh, my legs are sore. Thank goodness. That's one of the main things that held me back from nunhood. Well, I'm glad I could clarify that. Yeah, no, celibacy is not a requirement. That is a bit of a myth. So no, I would say no. You don't have to be celibate. Though I definitely used to think that would be the case, but no. I'm trying to think. I really can't think of any god that would particularly be against like relationships. I don't think there is one. I can't even think of like a single god that was known for, well, there was a Greek god. I forgot her name though. But yeah, everyone, let me know if you got any more questions here. We have a bit of a slow day. Kind of wish that if I had reminded people more than a day in advance, I could have fixed that. But I was so just busy this week with that exam. It was my history exam, and history is literally one of my majors in high school and college, so I have to make sure I get a good grade on it. College, for certain, is kicking my ass. But I'm hoping to eventually go study in Athens to study world philosophy a bit more. Also, one of the next videos I'm going to be doing is my experience in Dot or Duat, the Egyptian underworld. And I'll probably talk about it on this live too, as you guys get like a little sneak peek for being here earlier. But I had this one, I don't know, it was such a weird situation because I've kind of been studying the Egyptian underworld, Duat or Dot. I've heard many different ways of the pronunciation of the name. And I had this one instance where around the time period of me moving to go to college, I was sleeping in my room, and for some reason, I was in this very lucid state. And I remember I was really looking for what I call it the abyss of time, because it's always imitating a specific time period. And I remember I wanted to find it so badly. And when I did find it, I remember seeing like a tomb of Osiris. It had like a stone slab of Osiris like above it, and below it was like a locked up chamber, like steel. There was no way to open this thing. And I remember trying to open it. I was trying to open this thing, and I could not get it open. And eventually it just opened automatically, and I went down into it, and it was such a trippy place to be. It was like I was back in my apartment, but everything had slowed down. No, not even that it slowed down. Everything was like in a standstill. Time was not moving forward, but yet there was a concept of it, that time existed. And I remember looking over a tree line and just seeing a very vast ocean. And every time I wanted something, like a person, they would show up. And eventually it got crowded. It was full of people from my life. And this is actually something that was in the original belief system of Duat, that everything would be returned to the person once they entered. So everything that they had here would be returned to them after they were able to enter Duat. And that was what I had. I had my apartment complex. I had my friends and family that I was going to have to leave behind. They were all there. And it felt like I think I remember staying there for a year. Like, time just kept passing in this very, like, lucid state where time would just pass, and it would just kind of point out, like, it was Christmas and a bunch of people were there. It was spring again, it was fall, it was summer, time kept changing. And eventually I was catching on to the problem. I was like, it's nice to have everybody here, but nothing changes here. It just, everything remains the same, everything doesn't go on. Everything is just consistently the same thing. And I started telling people that in this place. I was like, you guys we can't stay here. The world won't change here. It just stays the same consistently. And everyone kept telling me, I don't want change. I don't want things to change. I want to stay here where everything is the same, or everything keeps going. And I was upset because I had said that if nothing changes, then neither will we, and we'll all just remain like this forever. And nobody, I repeat, nobody wanted to leave. Everyone was okay with that. And I started realizing why. Because in a world like this, there is absolutely nothing to fear. It is a perfect paradise in which there is no growth. People grow because of fear. People grow because of experiences. And people change because of that. And how much the human nature desires no change at all. How much they don't want to have to move on from something. And because of that, when I had seen this and realized it, I left. I walked out of that abyss of time, and I closed it. And I closed it in a way that if anybody wanted to come out, they could, but if anybody wanted to come in, they wouldn't be able to. And I never want to go back. And ever since I closed that door, I don't know what it is, but I can't even remember a life before I moved to college. It's like everything from the past has been almost completely shut off and closed off, to where the only thing I can remember is the feeling and emotions of those events, but I can't recall if they happened or not. So it was one of the most trippiest experiences I've had in terms of like exploring some kind of otherworldly area. But the thing with Duat is that it's kind of multi-layered. There's that, what I like to call like the pure underworld of it, and then there's another way to know you're in Duat, and this is for anybody who might have experiences. If you ever are in a dream and you're in a very familiar place and you see a golden sun, or if it's like the sunlight that is reflecting is consistently golden, or if there is an overly bright moon, if you ever see any of those and you're in a familiar place in a dream, you are in Duat. This Duat is only accessible if your vibrational frequencies are low. You only get that low if your mental state has a lot of struggles to where it's kind of hindering your spiritual being. And the question might be, how do you get out of Duat? A lot of times your brain will just eventually like wake up, and once you wake up, you'll be free. But also, I forgot to mention, if you also look outside and you notice sand, or if you see an ocean in the horizon, if you see any of that, you are in Duat. Or the golden sun. Remember the golden sun, or it's a very like reddish orange sun. Those are all signs you're in Duat. And you don't want to be in Duat, because a lot of the times it's because your past is weighing you down, and Duat is kind of activating here and reminding you. It's like making that past relevant. It is so hard to access Duat, but it's so easy at the same time. If you get so bogged down by your past, Duat will just consistently invoke and start to like just drag you and keep you there. Can you please explain your perspective on Anubis being intimidating and embodying death? From my understanding, he is not the embodiment, he just helps the dead. There was multiple interpretations of Anubis throughout Egyptian mythology and Egyptian history. Some of that comes from earlier interpretations had him as the god of the dead, or as the god of death. Later interpretations had Osiris associated with that. More of the later Egyptian interpretation, he was just a god of embalmment and mummification. And then very later interpretations, he kind of just vanishes from the narrative. My interpretation of Anubis is that he is a god of death. He is an embodiment of it. Have you guys ever seen Puss in Boots, The Last Whisper? the depiction of death in that as the being who is kind of like consistently stalking Puss in Boots, and always in a corner, always reminding him to not take his life for granted, doesn't actually kill Puss in Boots, just is trying to fight him for the fact that he has neglected his life. That's kind of in a way how I see Anubis, except Anubis is a bit more friendlier. And the reason I say Anubis is intimidating is because if you're very scared of death and you don't like to die, then Anubis and other death gods come off as a lot more intimidating, because because normally they don't look very pleasing. Like, I've seen Anubis before. Anubis looks scary. Like, he stares very extensively. He kind of always has he looks like a grumpy dog, is what I always say. And he really looks like he's gonna cause harm. Like, especially some of the depictions I've seen, I've had his eyes just kind of like bulge into a very deep stare. And there's a reason why Anubis doesn't always show up like that. And if you do see Anubis, he might come to you in a more pleasant looking form. But the reason why Anubis would show up in a form like that is because of, or how people would perceive it as intimidating, is because people would see that and instantly, due to a fear of death, be scared of being killed by the thing. It's kind of how the human psyche works. When I say Anubis is intimidating, it's because as a being, you may not find him intimidating because he may not appear to you in a more intimidating form, or you might have a less of a fear of death. But for some people who are very scared of death, death gods have a tendency to come off as very scary and intimidating. And from even more experience, hospice patients, there was a hospice nurse I talked to, and I have heard plenty of stories of a dog sitting in the corner staring at people. I've heard numerous stories of hospice patients reporting that exact incident, a black dog in the corner staring at them, and the dog gets closer and closer. And sometimes people see family members, but sometimes they start to see that dog. And they start saying that they're scared. And they'll like beg the nurse to get the dog out of the room, and the dog will never leave. That is Anubis. A dog standing in the corner staring at the person. That is Anubis trying to remind the person that they are close to death. And a lot of hospice patients are afraid of death. Not all of them, but a lot of them are, so Anubis appears to them in a sense to remind them that their time is coming and that they're going to have to face him one way or another. I mean, consider the fact that you see, if you're in hospice and you're already aware of the fact that you're going to die, then you shouldn't be scared by something that's going to kill you, or that looks like it's going to kill you. But, of course, you would be given that situation, and that's kind of the reminder that your time is coming, and you're going to have to face me sooner or later. And this is you don't have much time left, so you're going to have to face me now, kind of thing. I hope that clarifies that question. I've actually heard of some pagans report seeing hell, but hell actually, I think, is great philosophy for it, because she has a beautiful form, and then she has a more scary-looking form. I'm terrified of death, but Anubis always makes me feel calm, and I can always find love in his eyes. The question I have to ask is, are you terrified of dying, or are you terrified of what comes after? Because I don't want to die, and I would say I am scared of death. But at the same time, I think that it's not what comes after, it's the action of it. And we may not, I don't mean to question your experience, but I don't know. I've never seen Anubis's eyes in a loving way. Don't look at me like that. I saw his altar kind of give me a glare. Yeah, I know, Anubis. I've never had like a love appearance from his eyes, but I think some of that comes from, I don't know, it's hard to say. It really is. He might be you probably aren't close to death, so you may not have to see the more intimidating side, and he kind of shows more loving and caring side, because I mean, he's a god of death. One of his biggest jobs is to protect you from dying, so you need to feel safe with him so that he can protect you, and that you'll understand if he's trying to get you safe. But the difference is that when you're gonna die, he might appear to you more intimidatingly, or he might appear to you in a more loving and embracing way, because that loving and embracing way is going to be what helps you move on. So it can depend on just what Anubis is wanting to communicate. Because it's like, I don't know. I've seen Anubis' true form to an extent, and he is intimidating to look at. And many people have reported the same thing, especially when they're not prepared to see Anubis. When you're more prepared, I think he comes off as more loving, because you kind of are embracing death to an extent, physically and mentally. And in other instances, people who aren't ready to face Anubis will perceive him as more intimidatingly. Do you think we should be afraid of what happens after death? The great what if. I don't know what happens after. I hope I can figure out how to become a god, though. The Buddha did it. Sometimes Hinduism implied it was possible. I don't know what happens after. So, Socrates mentioned that there's no reason to be afraid of death, because either you'll sleep forever and you won't feel any pain, or you'll be with the gods. But I can't say that there's nothing after it. Because to me, since I know Anubis exists in my heart, and from my experience, then I know that there has to be something. I just don't know what it is. So, I can't even tell you if you should or shouldn't be afraid of death. That's something up for you to decide. Most philosophers would tell you no. Anubis' ways are mysterious. He probably has a reason for presenting himself to us so differently. Some people, I think it's kind of different. Some people need the comfort when they're dying. Some people need to be aware of the fact that it's going to happen. I hope I find a way to live forever. I hope I find a way to never die, because I don't want to. I want to be able to see the world grow into much more beautiful ways. I want to see what we'll become. I want to see all the challenges we'll face and how we'll overcome them. And thank you for sharing that experience you had in Duat. Lots of deep meaning and importance message packed into it. I'll have a video about it at some point, but the real message I want people to convey from that is that you have to let go. Because Duat is a place. Duat showed me exactly why people can't have access to a place like that, because no one will ever leave. And I think it even showed why these kinds of afterlives are not a good thing, because people should not have everything returned to them. People need to face the harder reality that they live in, and they need to be able to move on from their past. if you are in Duat, then you really have to think about what's going on, because there's probably something that you're not seeing. Can deities read your minds? I have no clue. I'll be 100% honest with you. I have had such a mixed result with that. I don't think they can. I don't think they can read your mind. I think they can influence it, but they can't read it. They can't read it. I think, like I said, they can influence it. They can't read it. They can put things in your mind. They can't make you interpret it in a specific way. They can only really, they can only really push you in a direction. If a god will understand how you operate based on their experiences with you, but they won't understand how you operate based on essentially, they won't understand how you operate based on reading your mind, essentially. So I don't think that they do. I'm not sure. Don't at me on it. I only speak from an experience and interpretation. But from the experiences of Duat, I don't know. I don't know what happened, because ever since I closed that door, I cannot remember life before I went to college. I can remember vague memories and some emotions for things, but it's like I cannot ever remember. It's like I never lived there, and that everything that happened is so long gone that I can't even remember life before it, or life before it. So I don't know. I would like to know other people's interpretations on Duat. Someone said that people have mentioned being in the halls of judgment before, but I don't know. I have a problem with some people's experiences, because some people haven't grounded themselves enough to understand that a lot of times their experiences are not actually happening, and that some of it is in their head, and because their shadows are kind of taking too much of a form. And that goes into another topic, shadow forms. Have you ever worn Anubis mask during rituals? I want to. I have no mask, though. I stated this in the earlier part of the live, but I actually wanted to get an Anubis mask and do it while attending to cemeteries, because that was an actual practice. That the early Egyptians would do, but I don't have a mask, so I cannot. I'd like to, though, but Anubis masks are hard to make and even more expensive to buy. I never understood Duat. I tried reading the Temple of the Cosmos and had trouble understanding everything with how you die in becoming a bird. I'm just like, man, I feel so dumb. Honestly, reading ancient Egyptian texts are hard to understand, because they're having to translate it from a time period where grammar was, their grammar was the equivalent of me go to war, me overthrow government, me make this person government. And they say me, but it was actually they'd say their name. They'd be like, Kemetic monk go to war, Kemetic monk overthrow government, Kemetic monk believe fight is right and fight is not right. And sometimes there's worse grammar, so some of this is really hard to understand. Becoming a bird, the concept of the phoenix, I remember that. Yeah, there was that too. And then the divine paradise, which is prevalent inside of Gnostic belief systems. Really hard to say. But don't feel alone in terms of feeling dumb while reading it, because that stuff's not easy to understand. And even I don't understand it. I only speak from experience. After a heartbreak, I wanted revenge. Anubis presented me with a balance in the inner world, in an inner world. While my physical world, while in my physical world, when I was contemplating unaliving, I felt a shoulder tap as if it was holding me, and you and me had the same exact experience. Anubis, back in the very beginning when I worked with Anubis, I had that same exact experience with him. I was very depressed due to dropping out of college, having no good friends that I could depend on, and my family and I had no good relationships. Couldn't hold a job. Felt like my life was gonna just fall apart. And Anubis just reached out to me randomly, just out of nowhere. And I remember on a lot of the days that I would be depressed or if I started crying, I always remember every single time I started crying, he would always show up and he would always like be the first to hug or hold me. And it was just, yeah, he was very like comforting in those moments. I didn't know who he was in the beginning. I thought it was just a wolf. It took me a while to kind of piece together. It was Anubis. I remember saying something like, I think what gave it away was I said, well, I could worship Anubis now that I'm an omnist, because I'm not bound to what god I can and cannot worship. So that is something Anubis has. He's kind of well known for doing. Gosh, he got mad at me one time because I had thought he wanted me to unalive myself, and I remember putting a bottle of pills on his altar and asking him if I should take them. I have never seen him get so mad. I've never seen him get so mad before. But I remember he, like, suddenly he kicked my altar, and it was like, I could feel his altar, like, staring at me, and he was mad. And I'd taken the pills off and apologized and calmed down, but that was a very rough moment. So Anubis is that god that is very, he tries to protect you even from yourself. I have an Anubis mask I used to wear. I used to wear to be Anubis on Halloween. I wanted to eradicate, I'm just really dyslexic, it for ritual purposes, and that's perfect. It's great. Putting that altar to good use. Hello, Incognito Mystic Joe. What's the place where you go after you die? There is a place where it's the place where the boat, and you talk to some guy and try to find, and there is an evil fisher or something. Please tell me. Okay. That sounds like a mixture of the Greek death belief system where you travel to the underworld. But that is Duat. That was the belief that you would travel on a boat that would take you around to the end, would take you to the underworld. And that is Duat. What you're wanting to know, that's Duat, the Egyptian underworld. I get that it really seems like Greek took a lot from Egypt. There's a lot of correlations in some of their beliefs. I have to wonder how much influence Egypt had on the Greek belief system. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I really want to talk about. I've spoken a lot about my experiences in some past videos, but I want to preface to people that gods of death don't want you to die. That is a myth that I believed, and that is not a myth that is true. just trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about. I've heard that the Egyptians believed that every night one's Ba flies, Baz flies into Duat, and this is the cause of dreams. Huh. I did not know that. But given my own experiences, I don't know if that's too far from the truth. I'm not really sure. No fishers, baboons. Oh, that is Duat. That is Duat. Sending everyone good vibes. Your channel is one of the inspirations for me to share my own testimonies with deities. I'm excited to express this. I'm very glad that you have found inspiration in my channel. I hope my content can keep you inspired. And hopefully you can inspire me to keep making content, because I am super busy with college and can never get content out. I'm still very upset because I really want to make my philosophical and theological suicide videos, because the next lineup for videos is a practice and how to work with Seth. So I want to get those 2 videos done, but I can't till these other 2 are finished. And gosh, they're back-to-back videos, so I have to do them both in not the same sitting, but I have to release them both around the same time. My understanding of the Duat is that it's like a twilight zone, and there's many different religions or regions. There's the dream realm, the afterlife realm, etc. Huh, I did not know that. I actually did not know that, and I genuinely don't think that is too far from my own personal experiences, because like I mentioned before, when I was in Duat, it was like being in a there's just different ways to tell if you're in Duat or not, and I'm not really sure how the levels of it work. From my interpretation, there are different regions, but I think there's also different levels, because I call it the abyss of time, because it literally feels like an abyss of time. But from what I have experienced in Duat, there's sometimes cracks in the ground that kind of spark up, and if you go down one of those cracks, you end up in what I call the dark world, or the dark realm. And that's where I say Helheim and all those Helheim and the real underworld are located. The Duat is probably also the location of the astral plane. I'm not very familiar with the concept of the astral plane, so I'm not sure. Gosh, the astral plane. I've been in the astral plane before, and it's a trippy experience to say. But there's only one place I've been in the astral plane, and that's called I call it the abandoned garden, or the galaxy garden. And it's so weird, because I'm not sure where it sets in the astral plane. Gosh, I know. Now I'm gonna really start geeking out, because these are all concepts that I've documented and wrote stories about to kind of better help people understand my interpretations and experience. From my experience in the astral plane, the galaxy garden is what I call it. It sits in the middle, and it's where I think a lot of people sometimes go to. It's kind of just looks like a dead garden, a lot of weeds and plants that don't look too alive. I don't know, because I have seen it when it was alive, but I'm not entirely sure what exactly it looks like. But there's that, and there's what I call the side realm, and then the deep realm. And the side realm is where all of the there's a lot of worlds there that are active and living and alive, different universes, different places. And then there's what I call we are in the side realm because our world is still active. And then there's what I call the deep realm. And the deep realm is where all the worlds go to die. If the world is no longer functional, it kind of drifts into the deep realm. And for all we know, we might actually be in the deep realm, given our galaxy is the only planet alive. Are deities omnipresent? I don't actually know, and I don't think so. I don't really think there is such a thing as an omnipresent deity. I call my interpretation of the true creator as Vela. That's what I call him. But I feel like Vela is just he's a creator. He is omnipresent, but the omnipresence isn't that he exists in everything. It's that he is everything. That the creator is all that we are. But it's a bit more complicated than that. Gods, I don't think, are truly omnipresent, other than maybe Seth, since he rolls over chaos. So, I don't personally think so. I don't think they're omnipresent. I don't know. But I do think that I do think that there is probably a creator deity, but obviously that thing has no care for who worships it, because it's a creator, it's a god. You're nothing to it. It doesn't give a hell about you. Or it's literally a creator. It created you. It could care less what you do. If it cared so much, then there would not be free will. Which is actually the argument that people have made of Christianity. Gosh, I don't know. Now that we're talking so much about the different realms, I'm just like, I'm lost into it. I want to draw like what I think exists and how I describe it, because Duat is such a weird place, and I don't know. There's probably more to it than we really know, and more to it than meets the eye. Because I've seen at least 2 parts of it, but I have not seen the I don't know. Now I'm just getting like lost in my own head. What you say is exactly why I don't believe in monotheistic religions, to be honest. There was a video I was working on that I never got around to finishing, but I wanted to. And it was just called The Critique of Monotheism, or The Problem with Monotheism. Because monotheism actually was forming, I think genuinely monotheism was already going to be a thing, even if Christianity and Judaism didn't make its appearance. It would have already been a religiously oppressive thing, and it was probably going to happen with Zeus. Because Rome at this time period had already begun adapting what we call monism, which is believing that all is one, and you can't be a monist without being a monotheist. And there was a lot of philosophers who were starting to adapt this kind of interpretation of the world, and some of that was influenced by Socrates and the philosophers that were becoming very prevalent. And my problem is that monism poses the idea that all is one. But to me, all cannot be one, because if all was truly one, then we would not be so uniquely different from each other. And I do get the idea that there could be a higher creator being that exists that created the world. Or not just created the world, created everything. But that thing is not going to give 2 shits if you worship it. Because worshipped for it will grant it nothing. It created you. It could care less what happens to you. And that is the critique of monotheism, because monotheism claims oftentimes that the creator only wants you to be subservient to it, to worship it, to you exist in the sake because it lets you exist. But this being to me gave everything the ability of life, gave everything the ability to exist, and said, whatever you do with your existence is entirely up to you. You have the freedom to do it. But whatever you do with that freedom is entirely up to you. All the consequences, all the rewards is entirely going to be dependent on you, and not worshiping that thing will not affect it at all. Because again, if the thing truly cared about you and truly cared that you were going to be safe, it would never have granted you free will, because free will always lead people to dying. If it cared about Sally Sue down the road, it wouldn't have granted anyone free will. Because if you decide to kill Sally Sue, then it clearly doesn't care about Sally Sue. Because if you do succeed, then it is at fault for giving you the free will to even do that in the first place. And that's a big critique of monotheism. And also the fact that monotheistic religions always have a tendency to follow the same structure as totalitarianism, which I think is a bit telling of the purpose of monotheistic. But I can't believe that all is one, because all is different in the same time. I read a book called The Temple of the Cosmos. I mentioned earlier that it goes in depth about the deities and also the duat. I have not read The Temple of the Cosmos. That is an entirely new book to me. I might have to check it out, not gonna lie. Definitely. I'll check that book out after the live stream. But personally, I think polytheism actually poses a better argument when you stop trying to argue science, because science will never fully prove the existence of a god, nor will it ever deny it. Once you stop trying to prove the existence of it and start just accepting that there's deities that exist, then it starts to make more sense why polytheism is a more logical approach to the situation. Because polytheism poses the idea that there are different aspects to the world. There's different aspects, there's different interpretations, there's different forms that appear, and gods just replicate those kinds of forms. What truly is a god is harder for us to answer, because we know what a creator, we would call them just simply the creator. What is a god that created, or what is a god, is a bigger exponential question. Are they beings who take the form of aspects of the human life, like death, love, peace, war, or are they simply just like humans and operate on a different level and take these forms in a sense of working with people? Truly understanding how the divine work is a completely impossible thing for us to fully understand at this point in time. But I want to be able to help push society forward, to be able to understand, to argue interpretations, but to really even be able to start a progress like that, we have to undo what has been done, that has been established in our society. Because our societies nowadays, almost all of our religions are not exclusive. They are completely inclusive. They don't accept the ideas of other people. Everybody believes that they are right, and that they are never willing to listen to opposing arguments. I debate a lot. And for us to ever truly be able to push for the understanding of knowledge, we have to be able to start putting our opinions aside and talking with people who want to listen. And therefore, if they will listen, then you should listen too. Because from experience, you can't really listen if you don't. They can't listen with no ears to hear or eyes to see, but you can't listen with no ears to hear or eyes to see. For if you want to convince somebody, you have to be willing to be convinced. The problem I have is that many modern Christians and modern monotheists and some forms of polytheistic religions like Hinduism or Shintoianism, they all have the belief that their belief must be the true and correct belief, and therefore any religion that opposes that must be wrong by definition because theirs is the correct one. And the problem that I have with this idea and this belief system is it does not push our society forward. It holds it back. Even atheists do the same thing. I've had atheists debate each other on the concept of evolution. It's funny. And it just aggravates me because we're not going to get to the truth by trying to fight each other on what is right and wrong. Because people want to believe that what they have is right. And that is traced back to Rome. Actually, that could be as far traced back as to early Israel. People believe that they're right. They don't believe that other people can be right. They must be the chosen people. Everyone else must be wrong. Many societies adapted that, and because of that, every society prevented themselves from growing. It makes me really sad that Islam actually was a place that was kind of leaning in that direction, but their monotheistic switch screwed their culture over to where they became completely, you're an idolater, you're a horrible person, punishable by death. The religious zealots took over, and now their society is no longer what it once was. So, but it's to me really important that we start listening to each other and start trying to understand each other, because we can't understand the truth if we're only allowing ourselves to be the bearer of the truth. Which I'm pretty sure that makes sense. My lips are getting super dry. Islam used to have a beautiful religion and have multiple gods, like the moon god. What a great religion. Also, how much power do you think the gods have in our realm? Not a lot. In terms of your first question about Islam, it was a beautiful religion. Absolutely gorgeous. Goddess of the moon. They had so much female power in their religion, because a lot of them took from Egypt. The second Muhammad, their awful prophet, showed up. I wouldn't even call him a prophet. Prophets don't come bearing swords. He ruined the religion. He ruined a lot of the Islamic culture. Monotheism it's convincing to the dull-minded. Yeah, beautiful religion, beautiful culture. Love Arabian music. Gosh, their concepts. Even the jinn are such a cool concept. But man, it depresses me how bad Islam fell. One of my prophecies is that eventually, when I hope a new religion will form that is the most inclusive, a universal kind of religion that is inclusive to, it's exclusive to all religions. All religions are a part of it, like an omnistic movement. And I feel like when that movement happens, Islam will be the first place that the movement takes off the most with. That's my prophecy. Will it come true? Well, time will probably tell. Who's to know? Also, how much power do I think the gods have in this realm? Not a lot. Not a lot as much as we contribute them. I think Seth has probably the most power out of all of the gods. Seth is a governor of chaos. So Seth is, he kind of knows what's happening. He knows when things are getting too out of control. I believe that angels are essentially just the police officers of the... What? I'm sorry if I make that weird clicking sound. I'm not sure. That's my lips. I have a tick. I sometimes just do. Angels are like police officers that kind of govern over the world, and I think Seth is the one who actually has the angels. because he's the governor of chaos, so he has to kind of direct them on where to go and how to help deal with problems. But gods don't hold this authority over the world, like they can do whatever with it. They have to be more. There's something I think I remember that was like a concept that came about, which was called the Divine Code, and that basically states that like gods cannot directly interact with humanity, because if they directly interact with humanity, they're breaking like the super divine code, which states that those kind of interactions are like forbidden and punishable by like some kind of hyper punishment. It states that gods can't interact directly. They can't purposely influence somebody. They can push them in a direction, but they can't purposely influence that person. And gods are not capable of killing or they're not capable of killing or bringing somebody back. And this is to keep gods from actually like making the world a game of like The Sims. You can push them in the direction, you can hint at them to do something, but you cannot directly make them do it. That's to prevent, and you cannot directly interact with them. Like physically, you cannot manifest into their life and do something. And explore moments in dreams or other things. So they don't have as much power as we think. They influence us to do something, but in the end it's up to us to interpret those signs as what we should do. What's up, one-eyed heathen? Glad to see that you're here. Hope you have a good time here. Our live stream will probably be ending in 15 minutes, but that doesn't mean that I don't have time for questions, and if the live stream gets a little bit more popular, I might consider leaving it up a little bit longer. I do have homework I gotta do, so, but I'll leave it up just for you guys for a little longer if the things get more popular. I wish I could do these more than just once a month, but I don't have time to do them any more than that, and I feel like if I did them like once a week, you know, it wouldn't make them as special and like limited time you can interact. I just really feel bad I can't get you guys more content, because I put a lot of effort into these videos, and what makes me upset about the sex offering video is I left out like one key piece of information about like sex offerings are actually like sex offerings are specifically dedicated to, or sex offerings can be dedicated, no, what was it? Sex offerings are normally a requirement depending on specific gods that you work with, but oftentimes this is not the case for every deity. I left that out, and I thought that was very key information, and it was because I kind of had to rush the video. I had remade the video like 3 times because I just kept missing information. I'm like, oh man, I gotta add this, and I had to redo it 3 times. I thought that was the perfect one, and it turns out I missed way too much information than I wanted to get out. So it's like these videos take me close to like a couple days to do, because it takes me 1 day to do the rough draft, and then I wait till tomorrow to do the second half, which is replaying the rough draft, finding if I missed anything, then redoing the video, condensing it down a bit so it's more understandable, or talking more on specific points if they need more explanation. And then I may do it like on the 3rd day, or if I think the video I have is perfect, then I go and I upload it, or I'll edit it and then upload it. But they take me so long to make, but I put so much effort into them to make sure that they're getting enough information out and that there's better things that are being conveyed so people can understand. I was reading somewhere that said I didn't know I was so late. When do you usually start broadcasting? I normally start broadcasting at 5, but I'm gonna ask my like the people on my page in a post about what times just work best, because I don't know if 5 to 7 is as good. So I want to know if there would be like a starting later, like 7 or 6 to like 6 to 8 or 7 to 9, or which time works best for everybody, because I normally just do them 5 to 5 to 7, or I used to do 8 to 10, but I just don't know like what times work best for people. But again, if things get a little popular, I might keep the live up for a little bit longer. It's okay. I was reading somewhere and it said that that a master magician is Heka is more powerful than any deity. This is probably a hot take, but I just wanted to know your take on it. I'm not sure about the magician of Heka. I have no idea who that is. I am in CE, or not CE. I'm on Central Time, so I specify like it's 7 to 5 to 7 Central Time. It's okay, Kemetic, we understand you're busy, and we seriously love your stuff you put out in these lives. I'm glad that you guys really love my content. I am trying everything I can to make these videos the most educational that they can be, so that people can better interpret things from them. Have you ever done shadow work with Anubis? Yes, I have. A handful of times. Shadow work is complicated for me because it's hard for me to really define what a shadow is. I always call shadows the true self. They're the side of you that you normally you try to repress. Like last night, I had to deal with this kind of like accepting a side of me that existed instead of trying to consistently repress it. I've done some shadow work with Anubis. Some of it was over anxiety and not fearing death as much. The best gods I've done shadow work with is Bastet, Isis, and Seth. Seth especially. That's because Seth is, again, a deity that's just like, okay, you need to fix yourself. I'm going to throw you into the lion's den. You're going to have to find a way to get out. And Seth also is not afraid to like actually show you like what he looks like. Oh my gosh, every single time I have seen Seth, it has been the worst looking. He's not ugly. He's just like scary as hell. He looks like a mannequin with ears. Like big pointy ears, no eyes, wearing like his whole face is white, but he always looks like he's wearing a suit, and you can tell that he's staring at you despite the fact he has no eyes, and it's just so creepy. He always looks like Slenderman. That's like the best way I can describe it. A much terrifying looking version of Slenderman. It just makes me really question why gods look like that. I don't know why they look so freaking scary. But they look maybe more pure in that sense. But yeah, I'm in Central Time. I don't know, what time works best for you on these lives? Because I really want to make it to where more people can show up. Because somebody said that they were like leaving work, or they were still at work when this happened. So like, I don't even know should I make them earlier? Should I make them in the evening? Because I normally make them at like the evening because people are kind of getting off work, but I don't know what times work best for people. So like, what time Central Time works best for you guys? How do you do shadow work? I've been looking into trying it with Anubis to help me heal from emotional trauma. Shadow work isn't something that you just, I think, ask for. It kind of happens. You kind of, the best thing that you can do is ask your god, or for you in this case Anubis, to reveal to you what the problem is most likely, or what problem is the most weighing you down. And they will reveal to you in a way. The problem is that shadow work is not easy to do because you have to be aware of the problem. Like, if you have a dream and you see yourself as a child crying about literally spilled milk. You might say, and you feel very petty for crying for spilled milk, you might say, I don't cry over spilled milk. Why would I ever cry over such minor things? Why would I feel so upset over minor things? And your problem might be, not saying that your problem might be the fact that you get upset over such little things. You're going to be presented with something that you may not understand and you may not be able to accept is a side of you. And when you ask the deity, like, show me this side, you have to be able to acknowledge it and admit, this is a side of me. For instance, last night I had an experience with Basset, and I knew it was her because, again, the consistent meowing, like random meowing that shows up in a dream that had nothing to do with a cat. I had this dream about me being in a relationship, and I thought for a long time I had gotten over this idea that I need to be protected, or I want somebody to protect me. And I had kept telling myself that I don't want a relationship for that reason. I want it to be formed through mutual, like, love and affection. And I had kind of been lying to myself because deep down in my heart, in who I was, that was something that my shadow was, the true self, how I felt. It was a repressed feeling that I was denying existed. And eventually something sparked that caused it to be let out, and then you have to face it directly. Face yourself. That's what Persona 4 tells you to do. So the problem is I had to kind of accept that this is a side of me. This is how I feel. I don't know how to go and fix it yet, but the first step is acceptance that this is a side of you and to be aware that it exists, so that way you can better improve yourself from it. So that's your best start, is to ask them, what is the most weighing me down, and what is the biggest problem? I love this topic. Y'all are hitting all the points I'm into. I'm glad I'm doing this a good conveying. I think I'd prefer later because this is late afternoon for me, but I'm not insisted in any particular time. I just like regular time. Also, do you have a Discord or email list so we can get announcements? If you subscribe to the channel, I post announcements. I post an announcement for these live streams either the day before or like a week in advance. This week specifically, I messed up and was not able to get the live stream out in time, or was not able to make that announcement because it slipped my mind due to college. But for future, that's going to be kind of the situation. In terms of Discord server, I have been contemplating starting one. I think my intention was to start one at 500 subscribers and start like a Discord server then, but I'm kind of waiting to see. That's probably is going to be 500 subscribers. We'll do a Discord server. And then 1,000 subscribers, I'll probably start a Patreon account. I'm gearing up for Anubis. How to buy the perfect altar. What's the name of the furniture I should look up? So you don't need to buy a lot of furniture. I'll one of these days post a picture of my altar. For a lot of my gods. The only god I don't have a lot for is Seth. But he used to have a much prettier looking altar, and I don't think his altar looks fine. My Anubis altar is very, very, like, pretty. But you don't need to buy, like, a ton of furniture. All you need to do is get a statue of Anubis and get a bowl and some kind of glass to hold water in, or some kind of liquid. And then I don't know why it's not about to cry. And then you just that is the simplistic altar. Anubis isn't a picky god either, so he's not going to be upset if his altar isn't pretty. Eventually, I always say go to Dollar Tree. Go to Dollar Tree. Ask Anubis what he wants on his altar, and he'll start pointing things out. You can everything on my altar, other than I think the cup, like literally the cup and the statue, and I think the candle holder, one of the candle holders, are all from Dollar Tree. And the obelisk I have, and the emerald, and the pharaoh amulet. There's a lot of stuff that's on my altar that's not from Dollar Tree, but those were all things I bought much later on. So, just ask Anubis what he wants on his altar, and he'll point you in the right direction. And he'll normally consider the price range that you're in. If he knows you're struggling with money, he's not going to ask for a lot. So, just whatever you kind of feel would be pretty looking on an altar. Thank you so much for answering my question, and this is very interesting discussion. I will propose to Anubis in about a week, so it was nice to have this final opportunity to chat with you. I thought crystals were important, such as an obsidian. You can put crystals on an altar, but just don't think that your god, any god you work with, is going to slam their hand on a desk and be like, buy me crystals, buy me products. Balenciaga. No, they'll never do something like that. They'll always be very understanding. They're not essential. You do want an incense holder though, and a candle. For Anubis, black, white, gold are your best candles. I think he doesn't mind red, but I think black, white, and gold are your best candle bets. Incense, Egyptian. There's you can buy over 1,000 Egyptian musk for $20. That's what I got, so you can do something like that. Yeah, I do have obsidian on my altar. That's just personally me. And if Anubis says he wants me to be a nun, maybe some years from now, you will know of another person aside from yourself who's a god spouse to him. Hopefully, if you're going to propose next week and he says yes, then I'll finally know someone else who is god spouse to Anubis. Because there is just not a lot of people who are. But what else was I going to say about? One thing to be aware of god spousing is answers are hard to get from deities. And I don't know, Anubis directly said yes with me, but I don't know what he'll say with you. So he might say yes, he might say no. I don't know. I don't know how to interpret your answer, so whatever answer you get will be entirely up for you, and you'll know whenever you get the answer. I think in my god spousing video I touched base on that topic. I was like, how do you know if your god says yes? Anubis with me, he said directly, yes. And I think I asked him I had to ask him a couple times to get a straight answer from him. Also, you don't have to buy a ring. You can, but you don't have to buy a ring. I know I bought a ring and Anubis hated the ring, and I have no idea what happened to it. I know when I went to buy the ring, he told me don't, and I still bought the ring. So you don't have to buy a ring or anything. Buying a ring is optional. Oh my fellas. I feel like at some point, maybe in the future, I don't know. If I could ever start if I could start my own church, a Church of Anubis or something, I don't think I'd want to do something like that. I'd want it to be more inclusive to other religions. I wouldn't mind though. We'd all have like a big practice where we all go to the cemetery and put flowers on tombstones, get a good dogma going. I am thirsty as hell though. But yeah, that's just that spousing is a confusing thing. That's for certain. I can't speak for what a god will say, but whatever your god's answer is, it's something that you must respect. But yeah, before I do end this live stream, I am gonna get a Cash App started here at some point. So stay tuned on the channel for that, because I am gonna get a Cash App started, or a Patreon. Yes, I'd love the Church of Anubis. Yeah, that's probably gonna be something that I might try to start at a later point in my life, but I am gonna get a Cash App started at some point, just for kind of like people who want to donate to help keep the channel going. The more I can be more financially stable, the less stressed I am, and the less stressed I am, not only is it the more time and effort I can put into the channel, but the more time and effort I can dedicate to stuff like money I can put towards things to help the channel, like better equipment or better other kinds of things. A lot of people would be happy if there was a Temple of Anubis in the U.S., and that'll be something that'll probably end up happening here. It's here in the very, very late future. It won't be happening anytime soon. I do want to start a theology club in my college, though, so who knows? Things might get a little bit more interesting. But yeah, I'm gonna have a Cash App and a PayPal started here at some point, and that will be just for people who want to help keep the channel going, who want to donate to just, help things stay better, help me pay for better equipment, help me pay for better kinds of stuff to stay more not mentally, but financially afloat. So you don't have to donate. I'm not going to sit there and be like, you guys better donate $5 or I'm not going to make a video. Like, no, it's just an optional thing. But yeah, 500 subscribers, we're going to do a Discord server, so everybody will be free to join if that's the case. You can ask more questions in that Discord server when it comes out. But with all that being said, thank you guys for coming out today. I am really glad I got to spend some time with you guys. I am going to get off here because my voice is getting very rasp, and also I need to get some homework done before 12 o'clock tonight. So with all that being said, I will see you guys all in the next video. Hope you all have a lovely day. May you all be